We pan over an ocean of Atlas-employed colony workers, modified from head to toe with nanotech, giving them endless endurance and pitting them beyond peak condition. This resulted in the completion of the Great Unity Atlas Bridge, the most ambitious man-made structure to date. This bridge physically united Haven City and the continent of Narsosis with that of Nibu. Unity, at last. This fostered financial growth at a rapid rate and on an unprecedented scale if you were at the table with Atlas. We cut to CEO Jack Crawford watching from his high-rise building along the coast of West Nibu in line of sight with the fruits of his own labor. Thousands of nano-boosted men and women clearing out acres and acres of forest at incredible rates, at optimum efficiency, and within the same hour, laying down streets. Deforestation and the urbanization of Nibu accelerated once the bridge was completed and secure enough to bring over the resources they needed. Infused with Eppin energy being siphoned from the planet, Jack overclocks every single nano machine for maximum output and production, in turn garnering maximum profit across the board. No opportunity to turn profit went unturned. Workers overworked themselves in order to outperform one another to achieve top results for a ridiculously large bonus. This led to the usage of higher grade Eppin energy, which was not only highly addictive, but could only be consumed by those with higher tier nano upgrades. Jack distributed these as well. Jack watches it all. And suddenly, his phone rings. Crawford speaking. Court? Sue me? Court? Listen to me, attorney. Tell your client it's nobody's business to teach them business. Blame their mother, their father, whomever that taught you that when you sign a contract, you become part of the machine. You don't. You become a slave. Jack hangs up. The audacity, he thinks. He was proud of his Nebi empire and progress that he was building with Jeremiah, who we see arrive by his side to join him in spectating. The two discuss the future of Nibu Atlas and shift their focus to a new unique reactor recently built underground. A reactor designed to... Jeremiah stops and lowers his voice so their personnel couldn't hear. Not even Dravko Maz, who tries to listen in but could only pick up something about a strange scientist and a component being brought over from Haven City by bridge. The secrecy not only pissed him off, but reminded him of a deal yet fulfilled. Draff gets both of their attention when he swipes a glass statue of Zarkon off of Jack's desk, shattering it across the floor. You have this colony in the bag, and the bridge is built, Jeremiah. Time to hold up your end of the deal. Referring to the secret exclusive trade route on the bridge that Jeremiah was to bestow in exchange for Dravko's forced and unwarranted protection. Jeremiah smiles and nods, and he explains to Dravko that this will be done. However, there's still a war at stake with the colonists. There have been several rebel colonist ambushes in the last 8 hours and 12 casualties. It's dangerous out. Wrap this lopsided war up so we can get to business. Jack Crawford jumps in. Son, let me tell you this. Dravko glares at Jack, only to look back at himself in Jack's polished black shades, which made Dravko even more angry. War is the most purest form of business there is. How can a self-respecting businessman like Jeremiah and myself possibly deny that? War creates jobs, feeds families. Money is a big motivator, you know? Men will fight for reasons they don't understand, causes they don't believe in, all to make ends meet. Who are we to deny them that opportunity? Dravko Mas begins to boil a bit, but then gains his cool while stepping up to Jack, uncomfortably close. Jack looks up at Dravko, who wasn't that much bigger than him, and shows no fear. Jack clenches his fist, his nano muscles grinding under his suit. I'm not one of those no-good death squatters. I could break a man in two with these bare hands. Don't fuck with this CEO. Drafko looks unworried by his words and stares into Jack's shades. Jeremiah steps in between the two and threatens to contact HR. Drafko pushes Jeremiah back a bit. You're playing a dangerous game, Dulliman, and turns to leave Jack's office. The futurist approaches and informs him it's almost time for the Haven Lord Summit. Jeremiah looks at his watch, and we cut to a close-up of his sinister smile. Time to save the world. Since the massacre at the treaty, the Nebi Haven colony, soon to be Atlas Nebu, has been in turmoil. Atlas officers have captured and jailed many Haven colonists. The rest have been either shot or devoured by Legion and Legion's many bestial offspring inhabiting the surrounding forests. Every day, colonists and the Haven guardsmen that protect them are discovered, crippled, and hauled into Atlas's jailing facilities. The colony, however, had not surrendered entirely. John Quill was very much alive and was keeping the rebel colonists coordinated while hidden under Atlas's nose. Ambush upon ambush, sabotage and kidnappings of Atlas executives moving throughout the colony brought the struggling Haven colonists some leverage. So much so that these skirmishes have been kept from the public eye. We cut to a door opening as we briefly get a glimpse of a brain-dead Haven militiaman bound to a chair. Walking away from the captive and closing the door behind himself, Jace Beleren winds down from an afternoon of interrogations. He retrieves a rag from Henri to wipe the drool and blood from his cape. He thanks his colossal guard, then pulls out his phone and makes a phone call to Legion to update him on some sudden, urgent intel. We cut to a small covert group of Haven militia being led by a seasoned Haven guardsman crouched behind dense foliage in the jungle of Nebu. With rifles firm in hand, he signals to his allies to circle and flank the incoming Atlas envoy. The guardsmen spot their target, then dip back behind cover. Ika was right. It was Vera Zima, an Atlas's market president. The guardsman closes his eyes and prays to the old ones. Getting the colonists settled was supposed to be his last mission, and an easy one that he could retire from, but it became a nightmare, the one he was going to see through to the end. Suddenly, he leaps out with his rifle pointed as his allies brandishing knives engage their targets, only to realize their jeep was filled with Legion kin in disguise. The fake Vera and her Legion guards pull out and begin firing on their assailants. The guardsman shouts, "It's a trap!" But it's too late. His allies are shot dead at close range. The guardsmen turn to retreat deep into the Nebi jungle. Leaping over logs, evading obstacles, and keeping his momentum, the Haven guardsman sprints west. The glowing eyes of Legion kin can be seen piercing the dark high on his trail. The 4 pairs of eyes turn into a dozen, then several dozen, as they appear to be up in the canopy above and swinging through the trees above, nearly surrounding him. The jungle was closing in on him. The guardsman realizes he can't outrun whatever it was that was chasing him and slides behind a tree to hunker down, rifle ready. He prepares to peek around the tree, but first takes a deep breath. The guard's pelvic gets crushed between the tree by an assimilated spawn of Legion in the form of a hog-like creature, its tusks pinning the guardsman. He musters enough strength to point and aim his rifle down into the hog, firing into its broad back, but it was barely effective. The hog begins to eviscerate the guard, causing him to drop his rifle as he is violently thrashed into 2 halves. Legion watches pleased through the eyes of his endless bestial offspring. Vera Zima sits confidently across the table from two high-ranking diplomat hostages, both of which have worked closely with John Quill and were also Nebby siblings. The youngest looks into Vera's big blue eyes. You should know, Vera, that we agreed to Atlas's terms and are now employed by the hand that feeds you, Vera. The diplomat confidently relays, you can't keep treating us like these hostages anymore, or that be an Atlas Regulation U violation. Vera listens with a smug grin. I'm well aware of what you signed, Chancellor Youngitha Panathis. Vera looks to his elder sister, the Grand Archivist, and begins to speak in ancient Nebby tongue. Aikafika salakachi, aikachi, mo, oha. A tongue that the Chancellor had not invested time into learning. The Grand Archivist hesitates, and she replies. The Chancellor felt ashamed for not knowing the language of his own people, but also disrespected. He turns to his sister for an explanation, but Vera interrupts and continues to speak in the ancient tongue. The elder looks horrified by her words as Vera pulls out a vibro knife and lays it on the table in front of the two. What is the meaning of this? The Chancellor speaks. Vera stands up and turns her back to them. Grand Archivist Nepenthe has lied to me. A breach of Atlas law, punishable by commanded death. Commanded death? Suddenly, Nepenthe gets an intense urge to harm herself and grabs the knife by the blade with both hands, blood coating the surface of the blade. Sister! With a stone-cold stare, Grand Archivist Nepenthe adjusts the knife handle and prepares to thrust it into her own head, but is barely halted by her brother, who dives for her wrists, keeping her subdued. What are you doing? With Jeremiah's handprint etched into Vera's arcane contracts, it has become leverage and assurance in the most immediate way. The sister breaks free and attempts to end her life, but grazes her throat and cuts deep into her neck, spewing blood into her own brother, desperately trying to hold her down. He looks up and sees Vera watching him. I will give you a chance to answer me with truth, Chancellor, and one chance, none more. Tell me the truth and you can continue to protect your sister from herself for the rest of her life. Lie to me and you will watch your sister die as you fix yourself to do the same. We'll then wipe your brain. He cuts himself on the knife during the struggle with his sister and accidentally breaks her old, feeble wrist. We cut to an overhead view of the room as he struggles to stop his sister from harming herself while lying on the center of a large rune barely visible, spinning as the contract fulfills itself. Vera listens to the desperation in his voice. Perhaps now some truth could flow from these lips, she thinks. Vera invokes another contract, a law of verbatim, and promptly begins to ask her questions. Where is the android, Aika Tsunami 2? The Chancellor couldn't bear the thought of letting them get to Aika. Atlas could indoctrinate the entire colony with her influence alone. But the Chancellor couldn't allow his sister to meet her end this way. His sister was bleeding out and needed medical attention fast. He screams that he'll tell her where Aika is, as long as his sister is given medical assistance. Vera wags her finger. Negative, Chancellor. Contracts are contracts, and you're running out of time. Okay, he pleads as he gives up Aika's underground location. Vera smiles, and we cut to her walking and talking with indoctrinated colonists down a long corridor. She disperses them back into the colony with the goal of getting into the colonists' underground bunkers as spies. Vera calls Jeremiah with new, delicate intel.